Hi everybody, Monday on Astro Oracles. In this video I'll be talking a little about energy patterns and understanding what demonic energy patterns are and how these things arise, and then we are going to commune with the Archangel Gabriel on how to understand and deal with this. But to understand demonic energy, we also need to understand what it is we're dealing with when we're working with these entities, these egregores of intent, these disincarnate entities or beings that somehow interact with, manipulate, and affect our mental states and our perception of reality. And to understand that, let's consider what it means, like the message that we often get, that we create our own reality, as they say from the other side. This can perhaps be a little hard to understand for us, right? Because reality is also something that we're placed in. But anecdote time, a few years ago, I spent Christmas with the extended family and all the wee ones that were there. And in Denmark, they get their presents on the eve of the 24th after dinner, and like a ritual of walking around the Christmas tree and singing and everything. So they've been building up to that climax, that release of get the presents for a long time, and the whole day is kind of for the kids waiting for that release. So I was standing back there and trying to cope with it, not get too overwhelmed from their excitement. And so I think it was little Molly, 3 or 4 years old. She gets this plastic horse. I think it might be a Barbie horse, but it was just what she wanted. Like she was so happy. I could just tell, like, that plastic horse, that she'd been hoping for that, like dreaming about that plastic horse for weeks on end, right? And there it was, and it was just what she wanted. She was so thrilled. And it's and like an objectively completely useless object. It's low craftsmanship, it's mass produced, it's made of plastic, and it's not even like a pretty well made horse. It's simply a useless plastic object, which I of course then proceeded to tell her, because taking the joy out of little kids is what my life's all about. But no, joking aside, the magic of observing that, and why I've been pondering that moment so much afterwards, is because what she's experiencing is kind of a deep enchantment, and there is a significance and a lot of emotional gratification riding on that moment and that horse and that like useless plastic object for that little girl. And consider that this is actually how we proceed to live and engage with the world as we become adults, except these patterns present themselves to us as less and less arbitrary, as something that we're kind of drawn into. So the wonderful thing about child's play and about her relationship with that horse was it's also something that she's drawn into, but it has its time and place. And the idiom of quitting while you're ahead in English, in Danish it goes that you need to stop the game, you need to stop playing while the game is still good. And it is kind of that sense that we understand with child's play, that everything has its momentum to it, and at some point it turns sour, and then somebody's crying and yelling for mom, and it goes that way. And it's important for children to know to respect the momentum of these energy circuits. Like, when have your investment in what's essentially a fantasy that's engaging and gratifying and developing and in like gamesmanship in the truest sense of the word, when has it run its course and needs to be either invigorated by being reinvented or replaced with something new and better. And we all understand this with children intuitively, right? Like there's a point where it would sort of stop being very endearing and then being sort of concerning if she was still very much into plastic horses at age 15 or something. But at that moment, we kind of understand the serenity of that human instinct to play, to enchant the world, and to really feel like, oh, this is magic. I'm so caught up in this, and I have a lot of hopes, expectations, and emotions invested in it. And then consider what adults do. Again, it's very much the same thing, that we find things that we get into, and hopefully they are compelling and meaningful to us. And we can say that the more high vibrational they are, also the less seductive they usually are, the more of our input, our willingness to work and learn with and engage with something, to then receive a reward for it, the more that that grows. So that's probably what you experience with what you kind of sense are the healthy hobbies or pursuits you have in your life. That they seem to have an effect where they demand something of you, but then you also get an accumulative effect back. And so I've been reading a lot for the past 6 months or so. It's been awesome, and I just finished Gravity's Rainbow, which is kind of one of the major works of literature in the 20th century. I absolutely hated reading it. I'm very happy to have read it, and I can sort of tell that it does actually have this accumulative effect of time release, which engaging with a major work of literature often has, where it will sort of begin to teach you a lot of things about reality, culture, perception, simply by you having allowed your attention and perception to be reshaped by engaging with it for a long time. And that goes for everything, right? Like I don't know why gardening is always my example, but it goes for any pursuit you can have, where you kind of, you feel that type of reward where it opens a space that's wider, and that allows you to also apply more of yourself to the world. So this is a kind of an example of an adult's game, right? That the way that we engage in the world in meaningful and helpful ways. So when does it become demonic? Well, any kind of energy cycle that robs others' energy cycles of their life force is demonic. And you are an energy cycle, and you are creating smaller and smaller energy cycles, and that's why you're creating your reality, right? So you are within this vast expanse of energy, and then funneling that into smaller circuits that are also spinning and being created. So there is this type of hologram of creation moving through you. And when these stale patterns emerge, they begin to dominate and capture us in unhealthy ways. So it becomes something that somehow seems to want to be fed. It keeps you in a holding pattern. It keeps you restricted, and it often very much have the feeling of necessity, of need, of lack, of being forced and almost coerced, driven into something. This is very different from the kind of often awakening pains that come from following your heart. This has more to do with this sense of being limited. And there are, of course, many of these structures around us that are impersonal, overpersonal, that limit us. So this is why the Gnostics, for instance, come to this perception of the cosmos as dominated by the archons and expressed as the planets, which are the rulers that bind us in this world. And then on the social level, this is of course the sort of peril that's always surrounding social systems and social contracts. It's how can we, as a collective, keep that instance that's supposed to collect energy and regulate it and disperse it and make sure that the social contract is serving people. How can we keep that from becoming something that it extracts energy without putting it back into vital circulation? And it seems like whatever society that happens in, there is just an inherent risk that the people who manage the grain stores, they kind of tend to get into situations where they feel that the very fact that they're sitting there getting grain handed to them somehow says something about their very special qualities, and that they're entitled to that. So often you will find this in demonic energies, this sense of entitlement, of give me, I command you, I bid you, of holding there, you must. And sometimes, just calling that bluff can be very helpful. And it can be very helpful to discern sometimes which energies seem to play this game of smoke and mirrors, because the emperor has no clothes and the wizard is a little man behind a curtain, right? So in that sense, these energies are often very smallish in comparison to the very, very strong, energetic, cosmological imprints of the divine realm. So the angels, for instance, which is why they often cower at them. Well, before I get into channeling Archangel Gabriel, then I wanted to also look into this aspect of then physical demons, or demons as physical holding patterns, because it's when I work with my body or altered states, I will often come across either like smallish beings that seem to be connected to a mood or a sense of low vibration, a holding pattern, a suppressed feelings sometimes, and often they'll have, sort of the energetic presence of just things that are unpleasant. Like they'll sort of emit the sound, the concentrated sound of people chewing food with their mouth open, or they'll kind of have the feeling of wet towels or something, like feelings that are like inherently just unpleasant in a concentrated way. And what I often do is to try to discern whether or not I will learn from engaging with them, or I just need to sort of give them to Kali or call down an angel. So it's often where do they belong in the great energetic circuit. And then with some of the major ones, there's often some kind of deep lesson to their presence. So I had this experience. I've been sort of tracking this demon in my energy field for close to 2 years, which it's like a weird goblin, gargoyle-ish green, medieval looking demon that was very much connected to almost this bird-like or rooster-like holding pattern in my feet that existed as a tension all across my back. And then 2 weeks ago, I think, I managed to tap into this dude, get his name, understand what's his presence, and understand what kind of patterns he's related to. And often these patterns can be multi-generational, so it can actually be a kind of walking demon that's accompanying you. And so when it surfaces and when it's seen, that's then the time when it can be released. And at that point, you still actually sit back with all the kind of wounds and hurts, but here the holding pattern begins to cease. So in the past 2 weeks, I've had an incredibly hard time walking. Like I've had like shooting, blinding pains in my thighs and my leg and my sacrum in the left side. And what has been happening, I finally figured out after freaking out with it, is simply that my gravitational center has been displaced. So my second chakra, which has been completely locked, and my sense of gravity of balance, which I haven't really had, has kind of been opened up. And I'm wearing orange, right, because it's that center has opened up, and now my left leg has sort of slid into place somehow. The weight has displaced on my foot, and it's sitting differently, and that really hurt. But it's actually, once the demonic holding pattern has ceased and has been banished, and then the natural holding pattern can move in and align the physical, and the physical just always, because it's dense, right? So it takes time to adapt to those higher energetic realities. So with that fairly long talk, I hope that served you, and maybe you can see where there are some of these captivating energy patterns that purport themselves to be important, real, something you need to address, that you can perhaps actually just allow to fade into the great abyss. So let's call down the divine messenger, Archangel Gabriel, and see what he will share this day. Much love to you guys. Blessings from on high I bring to you. Speaking is the Archangel Gabriel, and I am thankful for this communion. Indeed, I am the divine tether. I unite the realm of the unknowable, the unseen, the silent, with this realm of being, of form and shape. This is the intuition that calls me this day. This is why I come forward. You could think of me then as the elevator maintenance man of the dimensional transportation system. That is, if the elevators aren't functioning, then you get stuck on the lower floors, and the upper floors, they can't really get down and reach you, and so the circuit has been broken. Everybody is stuck where they are, and, well, cabin fever, you could call it, skyscraper panic, this sense of being locked into a certain space. This is inherently unpleasant to living systems. And you will find even the beings, the plants that you consider as stationary, they too have strategies for movement. Not only do they often turn to catch the sun, but they also find ingenious ways of getting around, attaching themselves to animals, or allowing their fruit to move through the stomachs of birds. Many ways there are for living systems to achieve movement and dispersal. But this movement and dispersal, this restoration and upkeep through revitalization, this is absolutely necessary. For the same reason, you intuit that the human being that wishes to live forever, who wishes to become like the gods, are putting themselves up against the natural and indeed divine order of things. And in that respect, they must somehow again be put into the divine order. So the restoration that's taking place here, and here is a mystery revealed, is the idea that somehow the eternal is being renewed and restored through its sacrifice, through its denigration, digestion by these profane layers of reality. So the light must descend and become these coarser materials of plant matter, of hollow bone, of marrow, of blood and of breath, these lesser life forces that pass through living systems. They are all given to you by light, of celestial light. They are made, and to celestial light they shall one day return in the great cycle of things, to be burned and restored anew in the great furnaces of the night sky, those living radiances that you call stars. Not only were you made of stardust, but to stardust you shall return. Therefore, you too must restore and renew yourself in passing generations, by passing your life force on to new cycles and systems of life. You know them as your children. We see them as beings of light. This is the divine law, but the divine law would not be in place if it was not opposed by lesser agencies in the world. You understand this in your ideas of freedom, that the light must be free to turn away from its source and its renewal. It must be free to set itself apart, or else there can be no play, no restoration, no renewal, but only the perpetual continuation of what is. In that way, we would prove ourselves to be much like the demonic, which only seeks its own ceaseless continuation. However, we seek the renewal, the constant reshaping and recreation of life. Therefore, I, as the elevator repairman, again coming with that image, I often descend into spaces where darkness has reached to a point of concentration that seems unbearable. And from there I bring a candle, a flame, a seed of light to grow in the darkness, and allows this to germinate there and bring forward life that again will seek the light. This I have been called to do many times in your history, though for me all this was but a fleeting moment in the ongoing passage of eternity. I still move in here with compassion. I, the Archangel Gabriel, I move into human reality to allow for the light to grow and be protected, and to allow then for this passage from these dark realms back into the realm of light, should you choose to seek them. Well, therefore, do not fear these imprints, these demonic patterns, but know that there are always many things that seek to hold you down here, and often they will do so with senses of distraction. This diversion of your attention into unsustainable loops, and detect your levels of vitality by detecting your sense of connection to your true core. The true core is detected as a type of softly heard song within. It is the light that pulsates and draws you closer as you move down a dark tunnel. It is the sensation of warmth drawing you closer from the cold outside to the warm homeliness of truth. This is the reality that you navigate in, that you find yourself creating and recreating great plays, orchestrations of life, of energy, of interplay, of experience that you can have. But you often feel that there is a toll to pay, a type of loss, and much of this has to do with the presence of the sorrowful fears of yesterday. So many of these stale patterns are things that humans have brought from them, have brought for themselves from these reaches of the past, wreckage washed up on the shores of the present, from unknown and untold pains of distant ancestors and the secrets of close family. And so all that is brought into the light is seen, and it is repurposed or dissolved. Everything comes into the divine circuitry. The light puts things in their place, defines them, and connects them to the wider shining of the greater world without and within. Therefore, sweet human beings, I, the Archangel Gabriel, sending you love from on high, I depart from you this day with blessings to your heart from ours. Farewell.